Julie Spencer again. I am the author of the Buxton Peak series. This is Buxton Peak Book 1, Who is Ian Taylor? And we are reading chapter 10, which is called The Talk. And then we left off at the end of chapter 9. We had, Ian and Megan had just decided to get married right away and not wait through the next semester of her college and after their European tour. So they decided to get married right away. So this is later that evening when they are talking to their friends Rhonda and Kai. And Rhonda and Kai don't understand why they have to get married in a temple rather than just in a regular church or at a courthouse. So Megan and Ian are trying to explain to them why this is important to them, and anyway, this is the talk, chapter 10. I don't understand why you have to go to one of those temples to get married. Rhonda sat back into the sofa and crossed her arms. I mean, why can't you just go down to the courthouse? Because we want to be married and sealed forever, not just until we die. Ian realized it was going to be difficult to explain a lifetime's worth of religious education in one evening. The next day, they'd be leaving for America, so this was the last time Ian would have to help them understand why they couldn't attend the wedding. There's no such thing as forever, Rhonda shook her head. How do you know? Ian challenged her. He sat forward and tried to look directly in Rhonda's eyes. Rhonda smirked. How do you know there is a forever? Because I've prayed about it. That's a crock, Kai said. Just because you talk to this God you think exists doesn't mean he answers you. How do you know he doesn't answer me? Ian asked, sighing at the difficulty of explaining the nature of God to an atheist. Even though you don't believe in him, he's still there, and he's ready to talk to you as soon as you're ready to talk to him. Kai just shook his head and looked away, rolling his eyes at Rhonda. What do you think, Megan? Rhonda turned to her friend. Do you honestly think that when you do this marriage sealing thing that you're going to be married forever? Yeah, I do. Megan shrugged her shoulders and sank into the couch. Why don't you sound as sure of yourself as Ian seems to? I don't know. Megan bit her lip. Ian has a lot more practice sharing his testimony about it because he served as a missionary, and I've never done that. This is the first time anyone has challenged me about it. She sort of lowered her eyes in embarrassment and then looked up at Ian, who smiled at her and winked just to reassure her that her assessment of the situation was spot on. When he put on a name tag stating he represented Jesus Christ, it forced him to really evaluate if what he was teaching was true. I thought it was a little bit crazy for leaving his music for 2 years while he traveled to the other side of the country to preach to people, Kai said. What do you mean? Rhonda asked. Like a minister or something? Yeah, like that. I'm an elder in the Melchizedek priesthood, Ian said. The what? Rhonda narrowed her eyes. Like in the Bible. Ian picked up the book of scripture sitting near the little table lamp beside the sofa. He thought about opening them to find the correct passages, but decided against it and just held the book reverently. Jesus conferred the priesthood upon his apostles. It's just like that today. As a missionary, I taught the people about the gospel. You're speaking Greek. Rhonda looked away dismissively. She reached over and took a sip of her Coke. Actually, I'm speaking English. Ian sat forward, trying to pull her attention back. I know God is real, and he wants us to be married in the temple. I thought I was going to be hanging out with a couple of rock stars, not a bunch of churchies, Rhonda grinned, as if trying to bring some humor back into the conversation. Why can't I be a rock star and a churchy? Ian asked, teasing her right back. Gee, Megan, Rhonda smirked, and here I thought he was just marrying you for the sex. Oh, I am, Ian stated. Everyone turned to him with wide eyes. Megan's jaw dropped. It seemed that was the last thing anyone expected to hear him say after he just had an in-depth analysis of God and the priesthood. He feigned shock at all of them and then turned to Megan. Isn't that why you want to get married? Ian? Megan's face turned red. I can't believe you just said that. She looked like she couldn't decide if she should laugh or crawl under the sofa. He grabbed her hand and winked at her. Well, Ian poked her in the side, don't you want to have sex with me? Megan tried to keep from smiling and biting her lip, but it really wasn't working. Can we talk about this some other time? No, Megan, Rhonda laughed. Let's talk about this now, shall we? I think we began the conversation on the airplane, did we not? You talked about sex on the airplane? Kai asked, pretending to be horrified. Without me? Don't worry, Rhonda said. We talked about you, if that makes you feel any better. It does. Kai grabbed Rhonda's hand and grinned at her. Thank you. I'm quite curious about this conversation myself, Ian said. Was it a conversation just about Kai, or was my name brought up as well? Oh, it was brought up as all right, Megan said. Loud enough for the whole first-class section of the airplane to hear. Thank you very much, Rhonda. Hey, it's not my fault that guy was listening to our conversation, Rhonda laughed. Oh, there was a third guy involved in this conversation about sex on the airplane, was there? Kai asked. Was he involved more than just a few sentences, or should I be worried about him stealing away my new girlfriend? New girlfriend, huh? Rhonda asked. Is that what I am now? She leaned closer to him with a playful smirk. They had never so much as kissed one another, but they could tell it was leading in that direction. I was talking about Megan, Kai pretended to be shocked. I was planning to steal her away from Preacher Boy over here. Not as long as I'm alive. Ian folded his arms across his chest. I thought you were planning to be married forever, Ian, not just until death, Kai said with a teasing smile on his face. That's fine, Ian said, but as long as I am alive, you're not touching my girl. Kai shrugged. She's not my type anyway. He looked over at Rhonda and raised his eyebrows suggestively. Well, Megan coughed lightly, this conversation has taken an interesting turn for the worse. Yes, it has, Ian winked at her. Let's get back to my original question then, love. Do you want to have sex with me? Not until we're married, Megan blushed. Well, once we're married, yes? Ian nodded his head, pretending to be serious. I'm very uncomfortable with this conversation, Megan told him through gritted teeth, trying to hide her smile. But yes, after we're married. Whew! Ian wiped his forehead as if he was worried she'd decline. That's a relief. Megan smacked him on his arm. He crinkled his nose at her and leaned closer for a kiss. Would the two of you like to be left alone? Rhonda's tone was suggestive. No, Ian and Megan both exclaimed. That would be a very bad idea. Ian stood up from the couch. I think I'll go see if there's still some turkey left in the kitchen. Excuse me, let's rephrase that. I think there's still some turkey left from dinner, isn't there? What's the matter, Ian? Kai teased him. Can't handle the heat, so you got to go into the kitchen? Something like that. Ian mumbled and left the room. Hey, Megan, Kai winked at her as he was getting up to follow Ian. You're a little minx, aren't you? He raised his eyebrows playfully, leaned down and kissed Rhonda, and then walked out after his friend. All right, new little section here. Here, put this on. Megan watched as Claire pulled out a big floppy hat that completely covered Rhonda's profile. No one will be able to tell who you are. They'll just know that Kai Burton is frolicking around at Ian Taylor's parents' home with a classy new girlfriend. Megan laughed, looking at Rhonda in the mirror, thinking this might actually work. Go on lots of walks around the estate. Even if you're freezing, really be conspicuous. The paparazzi will be so distracted by the two of you that they won't even notice Ian's parents driving out for an afternoon jaunt. Claire seemed to be having fun planning this all out. Megan, you and Ian will be ducked down so far in the back seat no one will notice you. I've arranged a charter to take us back across the pond so we won't have to deal with airport security cameras. Cost a pretty penny, but you're worth it. My parents are so excited to meet you, Mum. Megan smiled at Claire. They just love Ian. What's not to love? She asked. Just then, Kai and Ian walked in and stopped short. Ian snorted and laughed at seeing Rhonda and his mum's ridiculous hat, but Kai pushed past him and went straight over to Rhonda. You look adorable. He leaned down to kiss her under the brim of the hat. Megan immediately saw Claire's vision. This could work. It was obvious who Kai was, and no one would have any idea who was under the hat. They would create enough distraction to escape unnoticed. Claire had come up with a very good plan. Megan looked up at her groom and grinned, realizing that in less than a week, she would be Mrs. Ian Taylor, and the press would have no idea. That is the end of chapter 10. And next we come into my favorite chapter. Chapter 11 is called The Almost Perfect Honeymoon. And we'll get to that next.